Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth session of American English Live Teacher Development Series 11. We're so excited that each of you are here with us today. My name is Kate, and I'll be your host, and I'm joined today along with my colleague behind the scenes, Heather, who will be serving as moderator to help answer your questions and respond to your comments during today's session. Let's begin today with these wonderful audience comments from our fourth webinar in Series 11. So Myra in Mexico says, wow, I love this presentation. I use stories to teach vocabulary, but now with this amazing presentation, I know how to include grammar as well. Thanks for that great comment. And El Haji in Senegal says, very insightful and informative presentation. What I like the most in this session is the superpower that transitional words provide the readers. Awesome, great comment, thank you. And Elena from Russia says, thank you for a wonderful presentation filled with so many fun elements. My students will be thrilled to do such engaging and lively grammar activities. So we love to see our teacher participants actively engaged in professional development. Please continue to share your photos and thoughts about our webinars by adding to the comments or chat box or by emailing them to americanenglishwebinars@fhi360.org. We may feature one of your comments or photos during the next session. Throughout Series 11, we've been exploring the themes of topics in classroom management for in-person, online, or hybrid courses, and innovative approaches to teaching grammar through games, art, and movement. We hope you've been able to use the practical ideas we've been sharing. So here's what to expect today. Each session is about 60 minutes long. The presenter will present the material, and I, as your host, will ask questions and make comments too. But we really hope to hear from you, our audience, so that we can address all of your ideas, thoughts, and experiences. Please do share your thoughts using the comments feature or chat box. Our presenters may suggest options for materials or tools during today's session or other sessions. The U.S. Department of State's Office of English Language Programs does not formally endorse these resources, though we hope you get some great ideas during today's session. And when our webinar comes to a close, you will have an opportunity to receive a digital badge for your participation. At the end of the webinar, we'll share a link in the comments. Click on that link and complete a short quiz about today's session. You must answer 2 out of 3 multiple choice questions correctly, and once you have successfully done so, you can expect to receive your badge via email within about a week. And before we begin, I want to let you know about a massive open online course, or MOOC, that is open now, Establishing Academic Writing Centers at International Higher Education Institutions. In this instructor-led course for educators, course participants will learn the history and purpose of writing centers, various models for organizing and funding these centers, how to find and train staff, and best practices for developing policies and procedures. The course does not provide instruction on academic writing, but it focuses on administrative aspects of setting up and sustaining a writing center. The course is open now, and you can see the dates for this course on the slide. Learn more and enroll today using the link being shared now in the chat and comments. And now for today's session, the art of the running dictation. Research has shown that movement has many positive effects for learners of all ages in the classroom. The running dictation is a fun, low-resource activity that can easily be implemented regardless of your classroom size, student's level, or age. In this webinar, we will explore many ways to adapt a traditional dictation activity in order to provide movement and meaningful language practice of all 4 skills in the EFL classroom, and discuss techniques for designing and adapting running dictations for grammar, vocabulary, reading, and writing practice. And now we're pleased to introduce our presenter, Jacqueline Peterson. Jacqueline has been teaching, training, and implementing educational projects worldwide since 2010. She has worked throughout Oman, Norway, Georgia, Vietnam, and Turkey at the pre-primary, primary, secondary, and tertiary levels in both the private and public EFL sectors. Most recently, Jacqueline served as a U.S. Department of State English Language Fellow and Specialist in Nevşehir, Turkey, where she founded the online EFL teacher training program, Classroom Kickstart. Jacqueline holds a University of Cambridge Delta diploma and CELTA teaching certificate, a Master of Science in Project Management from Boston University, and is currently a master's candidate in Applied Linguistics and TESOL with Leicester University. She also holds certificates in teacher training and online tutoring from the International House World Organization. Welcome, Jacqueline. It's wonderful to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for the introduction. It's so nice to be here with everyone. I'm very excited to be here with all of you and to share with you many ideas about how you can use and adapt running dictations in your classroom. So let's get started. Today, we are going to first define what a running dictation is. We'll identify why they're useful, as well as how to set them up, and we'll address some of the practical concerns that people might have for using them in their classrooms. And then we'll look at how to adapt a running dictation for many different ages and levels. So first, what is a running dictation? It's a time-limited activity in which students work in pairs. One student sits and one student runs to accurately write down a single text, words, sentences, or questions that are spread around the classroom as quickly as they can. Our students in pairs then, as I mentioned, one student is the runner and one student is the sitter. It would look like this in the classroom. Here we have our runner running to different sentences on the wall and coming back to tell our sitter, who then writes it down and tries to write it as accurately as possible with the runner's support. So having just that short definition and visualization of a running dictation, I have a question for the audience. And that is, why do you think running dictations are useful in the classroom?
Yeah, Jacqueline shared a great definition of the running dictation, and we saw that image. So you have a little bit of an idea, or maybe you've used this before, but let us know, why do you think running dictations are useful, or why could they be useful in your classroom if you were to choose to use it? And I just wanted to quickly address Abdul Haq asked, how can we adapt for online? So I want you to know, Abdul Haq, that we have a great adaptation for you towards the end of the webinar. So sit tight, don't worry, we will definitely address a way to do this in an online environment.
Yeah, just stick with us.
So let's see, Laurel says that a running dictation can be motivational for kinesthetic learners. Absolutely. It develops listening and writing skills from Satish. Also, Carmen says that it can for listening and comprehension skills.
Definitely.
A lot of people saying it helps to motivate students, and definitely the reading and writing skills are getting there. Pat says it engages students in the class and helps different types of learners. So that's a great point as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Great.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
So definitely motivation and skills. Let's look at some of the benefits of running dictations. Firstly, as you've mentioned already, reading. So the runner gets practice reading and then coming back and telling the sitter, who then gets listening practice as they listen carefully so that they can write exactly what the runner said. And of course, that runner is getting speaking practice as well. And of course, writing. So lots of practice in all four skills. And motivation is a really big one that our participants have already mentioned, as well as collaboration. So we get the runner and the sitter as partners. They're working together to complete that goal, to complete that task. Of course, they're getting movement, which is really important. And they can also even get some critical thinking in a running dictation, and we'll take a look at how to do that today. In addition to the skills that running dictation help to give practice to, there's a lot of research behind science and movement in the classroom. So research shows that movement helps to stimulate the learning process. Dr. Ratey specifically notes that exercise provides an unparalleled stimulus, creating an environment in which the brain is ready, willing, and able to learn. And research has shown us when we compare lessons which integrate movement with those that do not, those that integrate movement have students with significant increased engagement, motivation, and focus. So movement really helps to get our students' brains going and ready to learn. More specifically, let's look at the language practice that running dictations can provide for our students. Firstly, they can provide controlled practice and the chance to reinforce newly learned grammar or vocabulary for students in a motivating and fun way. They can also provide controlled writing practice and the chance to reinforce spelling, punctuation, word order, and sentence structure, as well as provides speaking practice and the chance to reinforce features of pronunciation for our students, as well as listening practice and the chance to practice some clarification requests or declaratives for that sitter to their partner saying, how do you spell that? Or can you repeat that? Or go back, check again. As well as we'll see today, it can provide skimming and scanning reading practice and the chance to identify main ideas or key details very quickly. So many different ways that running dictation can help us in the classroom with our students' language practice. Now, then, when to use a running dictation? A running dictation is really best used as controlled practice to reinforce grammar or new vocabulary learned earlier in the lesson. So in that case, it's great in the middle of the lesson, which is perfect for our learners because it's usually at that point that they are getting a little restless and really could use some active movement. Let's say, for example, that our target grammar was the present simple. In the beginning of the lesson, we have started to introduce that grammar. We've used a little girl named Sally and her schedule, which is a common context for present simple, and we're looking at what does Sally usually do during the week. We've given our students an example here, and after that, we want to start to get them to practice and use the language. So we'll say, okay, now let's see what Sally does on Tuesdays. Let's work in pairs. We set up our running dictation. The runner runs, comes to the sitter and says, oh, on Tuesdays, Sally, oh, she has English class on Tuesdays. And they run back and then they come. And number 2, she doesn't have science on Tuesdays. They run again, come back. She goes swimming after school on Tuesdays. And the sitters have then sat and written those sentences. After the running dictation and we've done feedback, then we'll probably open it up to our students' creativity and want them to use the present simple a little bit more naturally, and maybe we have them create the rest of Sally's schedule, for example. So this kind of provides an overview of how the running dictation can be used to support the overall lesson, and again, right there in the middle. So let's focus on that a little bit more and see how to set up a running dictation. Firstly, we're going to want to place slips of paper around the room. Then we will put our students into pairs. After that, we'll want to assign a role to each student within their pair. Next, we'll tell students when to switch their roles and set a time limit, say go, and then we'll want to leave a feedback session. So let's look at each one of these a little bit more specifically so that you feel really confident with setting up a running dictation in your own classroom. First, we want to place slips of paper up around the room. So it's usually best if you can manage to do it before the lesson begins. If you can't, then at a quiet point in the lesson that you have students perhaps working on something in their textbook. So I have my slips of paper that we're going to be using today. I like to fold mine in half, and I've got my sentences here. So I'm going to go ahead and put those up around my classroom, just as if I were getting ready to do a running dictation. So again, we just put these slips of paper all around our class for our students. Okay, but that would be before the lesson. So I've done that before the lesson. Now I start the lesson. Again, I introduce this context with Sally, and my whiteboard probably looks something like this. I've got my example sentences up. We have looked more closely at the grammar, and now I say to my students, let's work in pairs and find out what does Sally do on Tuesdays? So step two of the running dictation then is we want to put our students into pairs. So I like to number my students for this, and I would count them off 1 to 16, for example, then say, okay, who's number 1? 1's raise their hands, your partners, 2's partners, and have all of them find their partners. Then we move on to step 3, where we need to assign a role to each student within their pair. So I like to give them a letter, A, B, A, B. I'll say, who is A? A's raise their hand. Okay, A's, stand up. You are the runners today. Then I'll say, B's, sit down. You are the sitters. B's, take out a piece of paper and a pencil. And then I will tell A's, you will run, look, read, remember, and tell your partner, number 1. B's, you will listen and write. Then we need to be sure our students know how many times they will be in their role. We don't want one student running the whole time or one student sitting the whole time. So usually after about 3, I'll tell them to switch. So I'll say, A's, you will run 1 time, tell your partner, 2 times, tell your partner, 3 times, tell your partner, and then switch. A's sit, B's stand. So sitters, remember, you must write it correctly, and then we'll set our time limit. So you have 5 minutes, ready, set, go. Now, when it comes to time, an important thing to keep in mind is here we have given our students 5 minutes to do the activity, but in your planning, keep in mind that to set up the activity will take about 3 to 4 minutes. It goes a little quicker once students are familiar with running dictation. And then after they've finished, we need to do feedback, and that typically takes about 4 minutes. So when you are looking at using a running dictation in your classroom, plan for about 10 to 15 minutes in total. Now, we can see we've said go, our runners are running, they're coming back to their sitters who are writing. I have a question for the audience. What does the teacher do while the students are doing the dictation? What do you think, Kate?
Let's see. What do you think, everybody? I wish it could be the first one, but I don't think that's correct. So do they go and get coffee? Do they monitor for speaking and encourage target language use? Do they monitor for accuracy and instruct the sitter to ask the runner to repeat? And or do they monitor the activity and note areas of weakness for follow-up? So what does the teacher do while the students are doing the dictation? What do you think, everybody? We see letter D from Laurel. Roxana says D, B, and D.
Yeah, it might be more than one.
Daniela says monitor the students. A lot of people saying D and some people saying B, C, D. And Martha, thank you so much, says teachers get coffee, although I don't think we're totally correct on that one, Martha. but we have a lot of people saying D or B and D or B, C and D. So what's the answer?
Yeah, so actually it is B, C, and D. Running dictations are a very active activity for our students, but they're also very active activities for us as teachers. We'll want to be monitoring the students speaking and encouraging target language use. We'll want to monitor for accuracy as we walk and look at our sitters. How are they doing with their spelling and their sentence structure? Maybe we need to tell them, tell your partner to go back and check again. That's not right. And we'll also monitor to see if we notice any areas of weakness for our students that might show us we need to revise perhaps the grammar point a little bit more or vocabulary in the lesson. Great, thank you so much, everyone. Now, our dictation has come to a close. Either the students, all of them finished before the time went up or the timer has gone off, and we need to lead a feedback session. So here we have an example dialogue of what that might look like in the classroom. So the teacher has the pairs give their papers to the pair next to them and then instructs them to check if it's correct or make an X if it's a mistake, and the teacher provides the correct sentences on the board. Now, when we do a feedback session, we have a few options. So firstly, the teacher can select students individually to read, and then the teacher writes it on the board, or the teacher can select students to write answers on the board. And this is a great option for the students who finish the dictation first. So you still have other students that need a little bit more time. You can have the fast finishers go ahead and write on the board. And having that feedback be student-led, we can have the pairs switch their paper so that they are checking another pair's work and then return it. Super. So we have defined what a running dictation is. We have identified why they're useful and how to set them up. Before we move on, let's take a look at a class actually in the middle of a dictation. So I'm going to show you a short clip, and while you watch, see if you can notice the following. Do runners wait for their sitters to write? How many times do the runners repeat the words to the writer? Do they say just one time or do they repeat it? And do the runners help the writers to spell the words they're unsure of? Let's see.
It's locked. It's locked. So nice. It's locked. It's locked. So nice. So nice. But can swim. But can swim like
Great. So hopefully, as you watched, you could see that the runners, they waited while the sitters wrote to make sure they got the sentence that they were saying. They repeated themselves for their partner so that they were sure they had the complete sentence. And they also helped to spell so that they were sure the text was reproduced accurately. So again, that runner and sitter, they're partners. They're working together to collaborate to get an accurate reproduction of the text.
Great. It looks like the students were having a lot of fun too. I have a quick question from Daisy.
Yeah.
Do you focus on fluency or accuracy for these running dictations, or does it depend?
It's a combination. We want the students they are building their fluency naturally because they have that time limitation. But we do want them to be accurate as well. So spelling is important. Depending on our specific objective for the dictation, we'll define that. So it's unique to the classroom and the learning goals.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've got a question now for the participants. Knowing a little bit more about the dictation, what challenges do you think you might have in using this activity?
Yeah, what do you think, everybody? When considering the running dictation, what are some challenges that might come up in your classroom for using these activities? And then don't worry, we're going to address some of these challenges, hopefully, for you. So please let us know, what challenges do you think you might have when using this activity? Great, Inam says space. Yes, you might not have that much space. The level of student. David says the virtual environment. Maybe there's a big group or a large class size.
Sure.
Maintaining social distancing, great thought, definitely. Time management or mismanagement of students. And sometimes it's a challenge to get students to speak only in English from Micah. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. Different levels of language proficiency from Marina. And maybe in a few other people like Nelida are saying space could also be an issue.
Okay, yeah, definitely. All very valid concerns. So let's take a look at those and hopefully address them for you. So common challenges I have found are indeed size of the space that you're in, and also size of the class, noise, management, and materials. So let's look at each of these a little bit more in depth. Firstly, size. So oftentimes teachers think, okay, it sounds fun, but there's too many students in my class. Now, one solution for this could be to divide your class in such a way that a section of the class has wall A, another section of the class has wall B, the other section C, and the other one wall D. And in this case, you'll need to make sure you have complete sets of sentences available on each wall. So typically, the bigger your class is as far as the number of students, the more materials that you need to create. As far as space goes, it doesn't have to be so far that we put the materials on the wall. We don't have to have students running too far, but just away if possible. Here we get a picture of what I mean when I say that we want a complete set on the wall. So say we have 6 sentences, we'd want to make sure each wall had all 6 sentences available. Also, noise can sometimes be an issue, that it would be too noisy. For this, we can simply encourage our pairs to whisper, not only for the noise, but mostly so that the other partners don't hear them. They're trying to complete it first, and so if they whisper, then they aren't telling the other pairs. Next, then, the issue of chaos that some teachers come to mind when they think of doing this activity. Now, it is, of course, not as calm as if students are just sitting at their desk, but typically they're engaged and they're being active with the language. But we do want to remind students of the rules and consequences during the activity. So no running, pushing, or touching another student. We need to be nice and respectful. So I like to use a stoplight as my form of classroom management. And if I see any of those behaviors, then I'll write student's name on either the yellow or the red light. We can also make it a walking rather than running dictation or walk fast dictation to help with some of the concerns we might have about safety in the classroom. Now on the bottom left-hand side, you see we have 5 students. So what to do if we have 33 students in the class or an odd number of students? When this is the case, I like to actually have one student work on their own and be both their runner and their sitter. I like to select a student who's quite strong in speaking to do this, because then they get that a little bit more writing practice if they tend to be stronger in speaking than writing. Also, You'll see I have a cell phone here. Sometimes our students are quite cheeky and they'll take their cell phone, take a picture, and then come back to their chairs. So be sure you tell them also no cell phones. Now, another thing to keep in mind is we need to keep our materials quite organized. So it's important that on the wall you have your papers numbered, and that the students also have their sheets numbered, and that they put number 1 into number 1. It's very important when it comes to feedback. Then we have just some helpful hints and reminders about materials. Be sure that you have more than one set of paper. We can't have all 26, 30, 50 students running to number 1. So it's helpful to have a few of each of your sentences spread around the classroom. So we see in the picture here, we have a few of each. Also, do try to put your materials up before class and have those extra papers for people to go to, so everyone's not running to the same one. And I like to fold my paper. As I said, it somehow makes it a little bit more mysterious for learners.
That sounds great. And we have just some comments and questions.
Yeah.
So Maritere says that noise is not so bad if it's productive. So maybe even if this is a noisy classroom a little bit, that's okay.
That's right.
Yeah, and Abdul Haq had a nice idea that maybe with a big class, you could divide into different teams and give a limit to the time to do it. So maybe they could be more in teams than in pairs, perhaps.
Sure, I know that some of our participants have really big classrooms. So really it's about finding the organization that works best for your classroom, but that maximizes engagement of all of the learners. Absolutely.
And then one quick question from Savithri, who says, what level of students do you think this activity can be used for? Great
Question. So we are about to jump into our adaptation. So hopefully our participants can see that running dictations in adapted forms can be used for very young learners all the way to our adult learners.
Great, sounds good.
Thank you, and thank you for the great comments and questions as well from participants. So yeah, let's jump right in and look at how we can adapt running dictation for different ages and levels. So in a standard running dictation, the runner reads exactly from the paper and the writer writes it down, and the goal is to reproduce an accurate copy of the text. The text may be on one single piece of paper, like in our first sticky note here on the left, or it might be split into multiple, like these. How that would look in the classroom is a complete text that we have here on the left. The runner would run to that text, come back, run to that same text, come back, while other runners are running to their complete text. In the split text, runners are running one time to one piece of paper and then to the next one. Again, then, our runner is running and our sitter has their paper and their piece of paper and they are writing. So the runner runs, comes back, and tells the sitter the sentence, and then keeps going. So here we had 4 sentences and the runner runs 4 times. So for that standard running dictation, the objectives are to give students speaking, reading, writing, and listening practice through rewriting of the text. We can use it to reinforce specific grammar structures, provide an example for language analysis, or to practice various features of writing. Our students, as we've seen, work in pairs with one as the runner and one as the sitter. And we have our instructions that we have gone through. The students will have their material, we'll have the materials up, they know their roles, and we will tell them that the runners will run and read, then tell their partners, writers will write what the runners say, and so on, it continues. Looking back to the quick dictation we just saw, Here was the text that the teacher was working with. So I want to ask our participants, what target language, what grammar specifically might the teacher in this classroom have been working on with this text? So I've never been to Poland, but I've always wanted to go. I have many Polish friends. My sister went there last year. She loved it.
All right, yeah, what do you think, everybody? What language goals might this dictation have? What maybe would you have been studying in the classroom that you're practicing with this running dictation? What do you think? So let's see, some people are saying present perfect and past simple, great. Yep, Micah says that, owner, Laurel. Rodrigo says present perfect, Karima says present perfect. Everybody's saying present perfect and simple past or past simple, however you like to say it. Rashid also says you could work on spelling with this as well. So those are great ideas.
Yeah, great. So absolutely, we have present perfect, we have the past simple. We could look at why one is used versus the other. We also have example of country versus nationality, and reference pronouns. We have the use of a conjunction. So just this little text provides a lot of language practice and analysis. Of course, this would be for not our youngest learners, but our more intermediate, pre-intermediate learners. Going forward then, let's look at what that would look like for younger learners. So let's look at prepositions. Say we want to do a running dictation, a standard running dictation for prepositions. In this case, I would give students a handout with some of the sentence already provided, rather than requiring reproduction of the whole sentence, because I want to focus just on that preposition, and students, especially younger learners, can take quite a long time. So that's a decision that as a teacher will make based on what is the focus of the lesson and of the dictation. So in this case, we can see the sitter has the worksheet that I've given them, and the runner is going to run to each one and come back and tell the sitter. So once this dictation is finished, the sitter's paper would look like this. Now, let's take a look at these adaptations that we have for everyone today. So we'll take a look at 7, and we'll start with read and write and find. So in this adaptation, the runner is still going to run and read a slip of paper around the room, come back to their partner. The sitter is still going to write what they hear, but then they're going to apply what they know and find the item that's being described. So this is the find adaptation. The objective is to give the runner that reading and speaking practice, and to check the sitter's understanding of the vocabulary or grammar that has been introduced by requiring them to then apply it. So they're not only copying what the reader tells them, the runner tells them, they have to apply that knowledge then. And this can be used for a variety of vocabulary or grammar goals. In our instructions, we'll want to be sure to tell the sitters that you will listen, write, and find. So in this adaptation, we do have a choice whether to focus on form specifically and meaning together. So we want students to write the sentence and identify, or do we want to only focus on meaning? And we'll see an example of what I mean by that. Here, we're working on close. So the sitter, the writer, has been given this picture and has 3 spaces to write, and the runner has the sentences up around the room. So if we can go to the next slide, we'll see how this running dictation would go. So the runner runs to the first sentence and sees she's wearing a purple dress, comes back, she's wearing a purple dress. The sitter writes it and then has to look in the picture and find who is wearing a purple dress and apply that knowledge and write a number 1. And the runner would continue for the next few sentences, and then they would switch. Now, we again see that this is a focus on form and meaning. Where the focus would be only on meaning, the writer, the sitter, would only get a picture actually. So in the next slide, we'll see where if our focus is only on meaning, the writer gets the picture, the runner runs, comes back, and the writer only has to demonstrate they have understood what the runner has told them through identification. So a very good adaptation for young learners, especially.
Yeah, this is great. And we had a comment from Delia who said the same. She said, you can also work with pictures. Runners can look at the picture and sitters draw it, or in this case, they can label a picture that they have. So that's a great idea.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you. And let's try it then. Let's try the read and write for prepositions where we're working with both form and meaning. Kate, if you'll be my partner, I will be the runner, and Kate is the writer. She will sit while I run. She'll listen, write what I tell her, and then try to find the item in the picture. Are you ready, Kate?
Yeah, sounds great.
Great. So here is the handout that Kate has gotten. I am the runner, and the teacher says, go. Number 1, it is on the sofa. It is on the sofa.
Oh, I think it's, yes, it is on the sofa. I think it's a cat.
Okay, yes. It is next to the sofa. It is next to the sofa.
Let's see. Next to the sofa, I think it's a goldfish.
Okay. And it's under the sofa. It's under the sofa.
Let's see. Under the sofa, it's a rug, I think.
Right. Okay. And then our teacher, of course, comes and does the feedback session. And indeed, Kate was right. Good. Great job, Kate. We move on to our next adaptation, and that is guess it. So for guess it, the sitter is going to write and then guess. So the objective is to provide the runner with practice in giving descriptions, and the sitter with practice in critical thinking to guess what is being described. So it's great for the use of can, can't, descriptive adjectives, present simple, when we're describing the uses of things, perhaps professions. And in this one, we tell the sitters, you will listen, write, and then guess the information that you have written. So I'll ask our audience, our participants, to help with this one. And we are practicing the present simple, and we are describing animals. So what animal is it? I am the runner. You all are the sitters. You're going to write. I want you to write on a scrap piece of paper if you have, and then put in the chat box for me what animal you think it is. Okay, ready, set, go. It is orange. It is orange. It is orange. 2. It lives in the sea. It lives in the sea. 3. It can swim. It can swim.
Okay, everybody, what do you think? What animal is being described here? Let's see. A fish, says Karima. Who else has an idea? Owner says a fish. Let's see. Some people say Nemo from Primitiva.
Okay, yeah, great.
A koi fish, or a clownfish, or a goldfish.
Great, well done. And maybe in our class we've been working with species of fish, but in this case a goldfish or a fish is just fine. So thank you everyone, and great job. Next, we'll change the sitter's task again, and this time have the sitter color. We will also take the recommendation we heard earlier to have our runners look at a picture instead of reading. So the runner is going to use their own language to describe the picture to their partner. In this case, it provides the runner speaking skills in describing a picture and allows the writer to listen and color the vocabulary correctly. Again, it provides language practice for many different vocabulary items, and will instruct our runners to look and speak while our writers will listen and color. In this case, then, we'll just take a look at an example that we have here where we want to practice close. So our sitters would have this picture on our right, and it's black and white. And our runners, when they run, they would see this picture. And they come back and tell their partner, she's wearing a blue dress. And the sitter would color, okay, she's wearing red shoes. And the sitter colors, and she's wearing a green bow tie in her hair. And the sitter colors. So then, of course, in feedback to check this one, we can put our pictures up side by side and see if they match. Now, we will have our sitter, instead of color, have them draw. Again, we'll have our runner look at a picture and use their language to describe it. So in the, for the look and draw, runners get pronunciation and practice identifying vocabulary words, or the grammar we've been looking at, and writers demonstrate their ability to identify the vocabulary, or that they have understood the meaning that has been given through the grammar. Okay, so we'll tell our runners that you'll look at the picture and then run and tell your partner, who will then listen and draw. Now, in the example we'll see next, it is for very young learners that we'll see here, and we're practicing shapes. So in this one, I would actually give my very young learners this worksheet with all of the options of the shapes that they have been practicing, so that when the runner goes and comes back and says, it's a triangle, our learner, our sitter, has to demonstrate they remember what is a triangle. And then number 2, it's a rectangle. And number 3, it's a star. So a way to get students practicing vocabulary and showing us that they remember it. Great. We can also do it with something like emotions, where instead of circling, we do have students actually drawing. So in this case, the runner is going to look, come back and tell their partner, how does he or she feel? So we have the emotions up around the room, and we can see the runner goes to number 1. Oh, sad clown comes back. He is sad. And their partner has drawn a sad face, and it would continue. Great. So we have looked at 4 of our adaptations. Now let's look at a higher level, read and scan.
By the way, we're getting lots of great comments about how these adaptations would work really well. So as you can see, participants, all of these are options for ways that you can adapt this for younger learners, for lower level learners, for higher levels. And it's great to see the really expansive different ways that you can use this. So yes, but we're looking forward to the next few adaptations. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Great, yeah. So here we have a read and scan. And then this one, we want to give the runners practice reading, their pronunciation and speaking, and the sitters practice in scanning a text for detail. So our instructions here, runners, you will read and then run back and tell your partners. Sitters, you will listen, then scan the text and write if the sentence was true or false. So in the classroom then, we have our sitters with their textbook open to the page of the reading text that we've already been working with in the class that day. And the runners then are going to run to the sentences around the classroom. For this one, we can see that our instructions, I am going to be the reader, and I will read a sentence about the text. I will kindly ask all of our participants to help, and you are the sitters. I want you to listen, then scan the text we will show you on the screen, and write in the chat box if the sentence is true or false. So again, you are the sitters. Look for the answer in the text on the screen and write if the sentence is true or false in the chat box. We'll take it one by one for you. So here is the text. Let me give you a minute to familiarize yourselves a little bit with it, and then we'll begin.
All right, take a look at this text. We're going to give you a few seconds where we won't be speaking. This is from an article, I believe, in English Teaching Forum, our peer-reviewed journal. So please take a look at this, and then we're going to be doing a true-false running dictation with you all. This is called Bringing More Movement into the Class. Okay, I hope you guys are ready. We better get going.
Okay, let's start. Number 1. You don't need movement if your class is only 40 minutes. You don't need movement if your class is only 40 minutes. True or false?
Let's see, I see a lot of people putting false.
Oh, good job.
Interesting.
Okay, number two. Too much sitting can be harmful for students. Too much sitting can be harmful for students.
Oh my gosh, I see a lot of people writing true for that one.
And breaks should be at least 5 minutes. Breaks should be at least 5 minutes.
Okay, and I think I see false, a lot of false responses for that one.
All right.
So how did they do it? It looked like the participants said false, true, false. Were they correct?
Let's check. So we go into our feedback session then, and we see number 1 is false, number 2 is true, number 3 is false. Well done, guys. Thank you. The next adaptation is a read and write, but then reorder. So in this one, the runner gets reading and speaking practice, the listener gets writing practice, and then both together work to put the sentences in order to give some practice in paragraph organization. So we can use it for many different grammar points. And again, the runners will read, tell their partner, the sitters will listen and write, and then together they'll put the sentences in order. So the runner has the sentences and the sitter is ready to write. Now in this one, Kate, can you be my partner?
Yes, that would be great.
Great, and let's have everybody join with us for this one. So we have our sentences, and the runner comes, we went to the zoo, and our sitter writes, last week was my niece's birthday. 3, it was a great day. Okay, so we've got our sentences. Now, can you all help us put our sentences in order?
Yeah, what do you think, everyone? What order should these be in? Take a moment to check. And Jimena says, it's really cool that you can adapt the activity to your class topic, the student's level, and improve the vocabulary. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing. Looks like a lot of people are saying 2, 1, 3. So that would be last week was my niece's birthday. We went to the zoo. It was a great day. Is that correct, Jacqueline?
Let's check. It is. Well done, everyone.
Nice job, everybody.
Great job. All right, and lastly, we can also use running dictation for questions. So in this case, the runners will read the question, the sitters will listen and write the question, and then after they can take turns asking and answering the question. So here, Kate, can you be my partner?
Yes, sounds great.
Super. Okay, so I am the runner, Kate is the sitter, and we are practicing present perfect for this one. And we were very fast, and here we already have our questions down on paper. And so now we'll ask and answer. So Kate, have you ever been on an airplane?
Yes, I have been on an airplane many times. How about you, Jacqueline? Have you ever been on an airplane?
Yes, I've also been on an airplane many times. And have you ever tried tacos?
Yes, I've tried tacos and they are very delicious. How about you, Jacqueline? Have you ever tried tacos?
Yes, I have. I love tacos. It's my favorite food. And have you ever seen the movie Soul, Kate?
No, I haven't. Have you seen the movie Soul?
I have. You'll have to watch it. It's a great film.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. So here we can see that we can use question forms as well. Now I have one bonus adaptation for you. I know that many of you are teaching virtually at the moment, sorry. So let's see how we can adapt for the virtual classroom. In a virtual adaptation, the sitter is going to read and speak, and the runner is going to run and write. We will have our students take a pen and a piece of paper and set it at least 5 steps away from them and come back to the computer. So if we go to the next slide, we can see our instructions here. So the teacher has their sentences just written down on a piece of paper and instructs all of the students to set a paper and pencil away from their computer. Now, the teacher selects one student to send a sentence in a private chat box to. So, for example, if Kate is the teacher, she sends a message to me, and I tell all of my students, the rest of the students, that one. Then, the rest of the students all have to run and write what it was that student told them. The teacher then changes the reader to receive the message in the chat box, and that student reads the message to the rest of the students who then run. It continues like this for 3 to 5 sentences, and to run a feedback session then, the students would get their papers, and they have all of those sentences then, and they can type them into the chat box for the teacher to check.
This sounds great, and it's a great way to incorporate movement even in our virtual classroom. We even had another webinar that touched on that a bit a little while back on stepping away from the screen. Sometimes that's okay to do in a virtual classroom. Just get your students up and moving. It's always important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Perhaps even more so in a virtual classroom. Great, so there we have our adaptations. Now I'm interested to know from our participants, which adaptations would you like to try in the classroom?
Yeah, if we could just go, yes. So which of those would you like to use in your classroom, everybody? What do you think? Read and write, find, read and write, guess, look and color, look and draw, read and scan, read it. We have so many adaptations. Which one would you, or ones would you like to try in your classroom? Of course, we are seeing a few people saying all of them, like Mohammed. Nelida says look and color, and look and draw would be her favorites. Adita says look and color also. Owner says read and scan. Siba, of course, says all of them. And Sharir says the virtual adaptation. And Heisui also says number 6, read and write and reorder, and of course the bonus virtual adaptation. So those are all great. Thanks, everybody.
Super, so great to hear. And I really hope that everyone can take at least one away from our session today to try out in your classroom, if not all of them, hopefully all of them at some point. So let's look back at our session today. We have defined what a running dictation is. We've identified why they're useful tools, how to set them up. I've hopefully addressed some of your practical concerns, and then given you lots of ways to adapt the running dictation that you can find to fit your own classroom context. So thank you all for being such active participants today. And I really hope that you learned something about running dictations today.
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline, for these helpful tips on running dictations and all of the adaptations that you provided. These are really going to help our participants provide movement and meaningful language practice across language skills. And I see lots of people saying thank you, thank you, thank you, and great job, etc. in the chat. So thanks so much, Jacqueline.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Kate.